Charlotte. Maybe you've lived here your whole life. Maybe you moved a month ago. Our center city skyline sparkles. People take one look and label us as new, young, vibrant. It is an exciting time to live in Charlotte, but the complicated truth beyond our city's welcoming arms is we're living in one of Charlotte's deadliest years ever.
It's certainly been a violent day.
Mid-December, we're looking at 104 homicides so far in 2019.
Charlotte is now at 81 homicides for the year.
The worst number since 1993.
CMPD is investigating our city's 103rd homicide of the year.
Is this year a fluke, or is it the new normal? Tonight, we'll answer that, look where we go from here, and show you the 104 faces behind the numbers. Good evening. I'm Molly Grantham. So often you get the rat-a-tat-tat of headlines. Breaking news, blue lights flashing, crime, crime, crime. This next hour is to take you into real life beyond those blurbs. These are the people behind this year's numbers. We want to give voices to these people behind the violence. For months, we've researched the homicides in Charlotte, and more importantly, the men, women, children, moms, dads, loved ones killed. The youngest person this year was 3 months old. The oldest was 79. We know this because we have a master list from CMPD of the homicides of 2019. It shows information on each crime, the arrests, motives, and which are considered random. We've boiled that list down. What we found may surprise you. People are dying over petty arguments. It's not because of high exotic drugs or gangs. In fact, not one homicide in Charlotte in 2019 was because of gang violence. So what are people killing each other over? We looked at all the cases, and what we found is pretty startling. Here are some examples. People have died this year over $20, over a minor car accident, over a social media post, over a fast food meal, and over an argument about a boy. Look at these people. So what three things are behind petty arguments turning to killings? One of them that may catch the most headlines, juveniles, kids with guns. A 17-year-old is one of the three people charged with killing Kendall Crank, a single mom whose death grabbed many of us this year. She was sitting at a traffic light on the way to nursing school and died because of a shootout in a parking lot. A stray bullet hit her car. A woman going to school to save lives, but nobody was able to save hers. We reached out to Kendall's mom to see if we could talk with her about her daughter, and that's when, in true motherly fashion, she invited us into her home for breakfast. Our Sharon Hayes got a chance to sit around the table with this family, who is still really feeling the loss 9 months later.
Take the biscuits out.
Linda Springs is a mom.
Oh, we're gonna go simple.
She cooks.
I don't like them too salty.
She teaches.
And plus, onions are good for you, especially for colds.
And she will lift your spirits.
You want to try this?
I'll try it.
Linda says she can't help but be a mother now, even after her youngest and only daughter was taken away.
You know, I always tell God, I say, you say the best for last. Because I always wanted a little girl, and, you know, she was a joy.
Linda says 27-year-old Kendall had a heart for seeing the very best in people.
That was one of our battles, because she gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. She'll say, but Mom, maybe she didn't deserve that, or maybe, and I'll be like, no. She embraced people, and she believed that people could change, or people could be better.
Linda tries hard to remember that perspective, especially now. A stray bullet hit Kendall as she drove on North Tryon Street after a hair appointment back on March 28th.
She was on her way to school, and she didn't make it.
The past 9 months haven't been easy for Linda or her husband Donald, Kendall's stepfather.
There have to be some kind of laws put in place that if you under the age, or if you use a gun illegal like that, you have to pay a stiff penalty. That's the only way I look at it.
Linda says waiting for a trial isn't hard, but the silence is. It used to be a happy, loud home. With Kendall gone, her 2 children now live with their father. Their absence makes the quiet in these rooms sound heavy.
Like, what is the biggest thing that is different?
This is so funny, because I don't hear the yelling anymore, or the the noise of the baby's feet pitty-patty all over the house. We have dinosaurs.
There are memories of dinosaurs Kendall's youngest son loved, awards her oldest daughter won, and, of course, pictures of vibrant Kendall who tied them all together.
It's supposed to be your child bury you.
Anybody who walks in this home will feel Linda's open arms and desire to care for others, as a mother does. And that's what she wants you to remember about Kendall. Not that she was the 27th homicide for Charlotte in 2019, but that she was Kendall Crank, a beautiful daughter, mom, and student who even taught her mom how to see the light in the dark moments.
Maybe I should try to look beyond the outside, like she did. I try to think of the good things about her that keeps me going.
Sharon Hayes, WBTV, on your side.
Linda Crank met with the district attorney and said they're making slow progress on her daughter's case. She said it could take 2 more years to finish. Another one of the reasons is repeat offenders, and it's probably the one you've heard the most about this year. You don't have to go far to find an example. Charlotte's 97th homicide last month is a woman better known as Ebony Harrison. The man arrested for her killing got out of jail 3 days before the shooting. Our Alex Giles spoke with Ebony's sister.
At a November vigil, you could hear the pain and anguish coming from Ebony Harrison's loved ones. Family members tell me Harrison loved to tell jokes and dance, but now she's gone. These gatherings have become an all too familiar sight in Charlotte. Darkness and sadness, a collective mourning of a lost loved one. Ebony Harrison, another Charlottean cut down by violence. Police believe she was shot and killed on Reagan Drive in North Charlotte.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it.
The man charged for Harrison's killing, Corey Vega, just 23 years old. He is no stranger to the Mecklenburg County Jail. Vega has been arrested multiple times in the last few years. Online records from the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office show Vega was booked into jail on October 23rd. He was charged with robbery with a dangerous weapon, conspiracy to commit robbery with a dangerous weapon, and possession of a firearm by felon. Records show he was released from jail November 14th, just 3 days before he allegedly shot and killed Ebony Harrison. I spoke with Harrison's sister, Tequila Sanders.
He got locked up sometime in October. He was released November 14th. November 17th, he shot and killed my sister.
That's the allegation. When I asked Sanders what she would like to say to Corey Vega, she gave her comments deep thought.
What would be your message to this man?
It's hard. I really feel sorry for him. I don't know that young man's background. I don't know his upbringing. I really don't know nothing about him.
What she does know is that Vega is in jail now and has been in jail before, charged for other violent crimes. She tells me she's upset this man was able to get out of jail before the incident involving her sister.
They keep letting the repeat offenders out. You're letting people out with violent crimes. They're coming out, it's like a spit in the judicial system's face.
Reporting in Charlotte, Alex Giles, WBTV, on your side.
Now, the third thing behind the petty arguments turning to killings, we mentioned this, marijuana. We know it's on our streets. Some say it's harmless, a victimless crime. Chief Putney told us he's tired of hearing that.
People assume it's some high-level exotic drug market where people are getting violently killed, and it's not.
Well, if people were to listen and seek facts, they would know the truth, which is small amounts of marijuana is costing us lives.
Roughly 15% of this year's homicides are classified as drug-related. However, in many other killings, domestic violence-related killings, fights that escalated, or armed robberies, police say marijuana was present. Community members are working long days and even long weeks to make sure families aren't alone.
We are trying to alleviate a little bit of the pain and a little bit of the stress and grief that families are going through in their time of loss.
They are not the only ones overworked.
So that means if you get called in at midnight and that case takes you 12, 24 hours, our detectives are working continuously until there's nothing left to do.
The toll it takes on homicide detectives, next on Voices Behind the Violence. Now you're looking at something we've all seen. Candles, tears, pictures, and frames.
This vigil was in Camp Green in West Charlotte months ago. The raw truth is there are so many vigils like this, it can be overwhelming. This year, as numbers continue to grow, organizations have tried hard to turn the pain into purpose. Our WBTV's Dedrick Russell talks with one mother who said support from the community is what has kept her going.
The date was May 1st, 2019.
I never, ever would imagine a world without Donquavius.
Donquavius Davis was Charlotte's 42nd homicide this year.
He's just very generous.
His mother, Claudia Davis, describes the moments before she found out her son got shot.
That day, and it was weird because I was going to go to bed early because I just felt something just leave my body. I just had a moment of instant weakness. Not 10 minutes before I lay down, I got a phone call. When I went into the hospital, and when I said his name and it was taking me, and I heard the nurse say, and she just yelled it, was he 22? And what I heard was, I said, wait a minute, what do you mean was?
Quickly, a whole community surrounded Davis and her family. Mothers of Murdered Offspring, known as MOMO, was founded in Charlotte in 1993.
We are trying to alleviate a little bit of the pain and a little bit of the stress and grief that families are going through in their time of loss.
MOMO conducts vigils for murdered victims' families and encourages counseling. Harrison says the vigil for Davis's son, Donquavius, stood out.
I remember having a conversation with his mother during the candlelight, and she was very, very strong at first. And then all of a sudden, she just broke down in tears and just said, I can't do this alone. And then a crowd of her family members, kind of hovered around her.
It was a great comfort, just being shown compassion, just anybody to be able to show you that they care any way they can, it helps.
Sometimes just a good cry, a good hug, a good listen is sometimes all people really do need.
The vigils for this year?
We've been busy. We have had at least sometimes 3 candlelights in a week.
Both mother and MOMO want to know when the killings will stop. Davis is now left to follow the judicial system to see if justice will be done involving her son's murder. The mother now wants to connect with other grieving family members to make a difference.
We're not biological blood related, but the blood shed makes us family now.
Turning pain into purpose is now the focus. This mother says that will be hard, but she is doing it for her murdered son.
No, I'm thankful though that morning he did text me, love you, Ma.
In Charlotte, Dedrick Russell, WBTV, on your side.
Once the case is cleared, if a gun is used, it's supposed to go back into the street, into the marketplace. But we've learned that isn't happening. Why CMPD says it hasn't released 18,000 guns it now has in Uptown's headquarters.
Most of you have probably experienced the feeling of being overworked. For detectives who have the responsibility to find accused killers, they say that weight can be really tough. Tonight, in a twist on how we look at murders, our Paige Peroso is taking us through the eyes of law enforcement.
For the men and women of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, the increase in violence isn't something they can just turn off on their TV. These crime scenes are their offices, and they live through the effects of the violence just like the victims and the victims' families.
When homicide detectives walk into their office, they walk past a list of the homicide victims from 2019.
It just seems like this year has just been one murder after another.
Lieutenant Brian Crum oversees the Violent Crime Division, which includes the homicide unit. He says this year's violence, especially amongst young people, is troubling.
Violence, it's hard to try to understand and wrap your head around what we're seeing in the community.
Is it frustrating not to have an answer?
Yeah, it is.
And as the homicide number goes up, It bears a heavy weight on officers who are fighting this crime.
So often we get stuck on the number, 96, 97, and a lot of times what gets lost is that every time we add one number to that count, that's another victim that's lost to the community.
When someone is killed in the city of Charlotte, the homicide unit responds to those scenes and starts their investigation.
The first 48 is kind of the thing that everybody knows about, right? Because that's what's in the media very popularly, but our detectives keep going until there's nothing left.
The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department is proud of their solve rate. They say they consistently perform above the national average, but there are still open cases.
As a lieutenant over this case, I'm sure you're speaking with these families often. What are those conversations like when cases might not be solved yet and they are looking for answers?
It's hard. They would be upset with me one day, very angry one day, and I understand that they're not necessarily angry at me, they're angry because they want answers. And then there's other days that, that they would just cry with me. And so you really get to build that bond.
Seems like a part cop, part therapist in some ways.
Some days it really is, and there's a therapy in it for us as well, because there's times that we go through that roller coaster of emotions with them too.
That roller coaster includes the investigation, but also the process through the judicial system and hopefully a conviction at the end. Paige Peroso, WBTV, on your side.
It'd be unfair of us to just look at the law enforcement side of this. Once an arrest is made in a case, that case goes to the district attorney's office. There are 10 people on the team that investigates homicides in the Mecklenburg County DA office. Each assistant district attorney on that team currently has between 15 and 20 cases. The process of those cases can be complicated. The head of that unit walked us through the office to explain why.
But not every case is perfect. And so what we do is look at the evidence that we have. We look at what the best possible result would be at trial, what the worst possible result would be at trial, what the likely result would be at trial, and then we figure out what a reasonable plea offer would be to make in that particular case.
Are you always trying to find a plea offer?
There's almost no case that we wouldn't make a reasonable plea offer in, and that's because no case is perfect.
All that work ends here. From the street to the homicide detective to a case file for an assistant DA, it ends here at a round table in the district attorney office in Uptown. We were granted exclusive access to the discussion that takes place before a plea deal is offered. Intent, evidence, case details, the brutal nature of the crime. All of that is laid out on the table. CMPD, prosecutors, they're all represented. And after hours of discussion, a decision is made. All of that for one case. If the defendant doesn't accept that plea offer, the case will then go to trial. But the DA's office says that scheduling a trial can be tough because there's limited courtrooms. That's why some cases take years. You know this is the deadliest year in Charlotte since 1993, but the reasons why that we've been discussing the past hour are completely different from what was going on in our city in the 90s. Back then, now Sheriff Gary McFadden was a homicide detective. He had a frontline seat to the violence as he investigated and arrested people in murders. We asked him for a comparison.
It was shooting in crack houses. They were shooting at parties. Everybody knew that you were going to deliver this dope or deliver the drugs, and they knew you were coming. Drug dealers set up other drug dealers. Drug dealers robbed drug dealers. The guys on the street robbed drug dealers, so we had it all. You know, if you were out and they didn't have your money, they would snatch your bag, you would fight, they would shoot you.
Also here in 1993 was WBTV veteran reporter Steve Crump. Steve says he remembers his crime reports from the 90s like they were yesterday. He sat down with anchor Maureen O'Boyle to give perspective on our city then to what our city is experiencing now.
Steve, you were on the beat, crime beat, in 93, the deadliest year on record. Did you ever think we would see these kind of numbers again?
No, not in 10 years, not in 20 years. And the interesting thing about 1993 in particular, when we hit that 100 number, we knew something was up. And then it kept going. And then, when we hit the 120 mark, I remember being in the newsroom that morning and everybody was frenzied. It was like, Charlotte, really? We're putting up those kinds of homicide numbers? And when you kind of get into the metrics of those particular homicides, you have to look at what some of the overwhelming conditions happen to be in our community.
And those conditions were poverty, pockets, and it wasn't regentrified, right?
Well, pockets of poverty being one part of it, but you were also still dealing with the crack cocaine epidemic. And you had people, as far as drugs and turf wars.
So you were there in 93, you're here in 2019. Is this just a fluke, or should we get used to this? Is this the new normal?
I don't know if you can call it the new normal. I think that people tolerate it. The question in my mind is that everything has a breaking point. What will this community's breaking point be? I mean, you know, you hear some things about Charlotte in terms of being a desirable place to live, and maybe in some pockets, you know, you still have that feeling of Mayberry. But how does this town, if it can, and it's the genie out of the bottle that you can't put back, but how does this community reclaim its innocence? How does this city that we love maintain its stability? And as much as you can have all the institutional programs to create jobs and find affordable housing and those kinds of amenities, a lot of it starts with the individual.
Another thing both Sheriff McFadden and Steve brought up was that back in '93, crime was in very specific parts of Mecklenburg County, and today in 2019, murders are happening all across the county. Next is your chance. We're going to end the night with how you can have your voice heard so we can hopefully prevent this spike in violence again. We've laid out the issues here in Charlotte. We've given you the facts and also shown you the faces behind the problem. Is our homicide rate a fluke, or is it the new normal? Every single official we talked with had a different answer to that question, but all agreed that if we don't start talking about it as a city, it will not get fixed. So that's what we're doing. We're talking about it. And now we want to hear from you. Go to the WBTV News Facebook page. We have pinned a place for you to tell us what you think. What suggestions do you have on handling our high murder rate? Or be honest, do you even care? We hope you do. We hope you have ideas you'd like us to take to city leaders. Or maybe you have words for the families who bravely opened up tonight. Please let us know. This is your sounding board. Use it. Again, WBTV News Facebook page. We will be reading all of your comments, and we will take them to the leaders who run our city. I'm Molly Grantham. On behalf of WBTV News, thank you. We're going to leave you with what we find most important, the people. Good night.